Good day, everyone, and welcome to another session of Digital Education Exchange 2021. My name is Gerardo Maya. I'm an executive digital advisor at Microsoft, and today I'm going to talk about AI in action, which basically means AI in the context of education for this presentation. If we start talking about artificial intelligence, every time I have that conversation, I like to start with one context setting topic or just level set everyone on what is artificial intelligence. And the first thing that I can start defining artificial intelligence, or the best way to define it, is to say what it's not. And one thing that artificial intelligence in technology it's not, it's the equivalent of human intelligence. I know we have heard this over and over in the press, in the media, how artificial intelligence is going to replace humans. In what we have developed for artificial intelligence, and I don't think there is anything even close to what human intelligence can do. So then what's the difference? Human intelligence is extremely complex. It is a series of capabilities that work together for comprehension, listening, many different things that happen through complex. I'm by all means not an expert in human intelligence, but I can tell you that for sure in the context of artificial intelligence. So then, what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence, think of it as an amplifier. And it's very important when I give you the context of an amplifier because it means two things. One is that it depends or has a direct relationship with human intelligence. They're not one at the expense of the other. It's not meant to be one substituting the other. It's actually how one complements the other. So when I define artificial intelligence as an amplifier, keep that in mind. It's the amplification of the capabilities that we can do as humans with our own brain, with our own intelligence. So that means that artificial intelligence cannot do everything human intelligence can do, but it can help you amplify our capabilities. If we know how to work together, human intelligence can direct artificial intelligence to do things that we probably have not even imagined already. It unleashes or expands our creativity. It expands our capability. So that's really when the value of artificial intelligence is more evident, when we see it as this amplifier, this tool, this perfect companion to the things that we do or the things that we do in a personal, business, on any level. And you will see through this presentation how we make that point. But keep that in mind. And especially in the education field, I think it's extremely important and fundamental to teach everyone who is starting their learning journey that artificial intelligence is here to provide them with that amplification, whether it is to learn, whether it is to teach, whether it is to manage. That's really the value of artificial intelligence. But I know I'm saying a lot, but let me actually show you an example in the context of education. And let me jump and go directly to Australia. There's a great case that Microsoft was part of for a university in Sydney. In order for me to break what happened in this use case, let me say it very simply. We use different parts of artificial intelligence. One was chatbots, if you're familiar with that concept. We use cognitive services, and we use even tools from Microsoft such as Teams. But the important thing is not if you know how a chatbot, what a chatbot is or how it works. The important thing is that the problem that we frame here was not necessarily to create a chatbot or a digital assistant that will reply or find every single answer to every question that any student would have at any point in time. We know that that's not possible. But what we do know is that if we combine the power of the three, we could create an amplifier for community, for learning, to optimize the learning experience. So let me delve on the case. So basically, the use of the technology started when any student, think of any student and let's pick a topic, science, right? The student is actually taking a course in science, and he or she actually needs to have a question. topic they don't understand or a topic they want to delve more, and they use Teams to actually reach out to a person to help them. But the chatbot here provides the front end and provides a very interesting interface. So they ask the question, he or she asks the question and says, I need to know more about this topic. Cognitive services behind the chatbot will know if it's a specific lesson for a specific course. It understands the user that is actually making the question. So at the end of the day, it actually does all these different associations. Let's say this is the first time this question is being asked. It will actually redirect the question to the appropriate, whether professor, assistant in this university. So you might think, well, that's something simple. We don't need artificial intelligence for that. But here's the amplifier effect. If another student, 1, 2, 10 more students ask a question around the same topic, the artificial intelligence will identify that they're all talking about the same thing and will build in real time a mini community where everyone can listen to the discussion that has already happened, but also to share insights and contribute to the learning experience of each one of them. That's really where the power of AI comes in. You see the amplification effect? So then you don't have multiple students in isolation trying to contact sometimes the same person or sometimes different person. But the best use of resources is get them together, where between the technology, between the educators, and between the students, they can all create a more rich experience, an experience that even could be tailored to each one of these students. Someone might be just listening to reinforce the lesson because they probably know it, but they want to reinforce it. Others didn't even know. Others want to learn proactively about the same topic. So you see the multiplier effect. This is the amplification that we're looking for, are the perfect use cases for a technology like artificial intelligence. Interesting, right? So let me actually, with this example in mind, let me walk you through what we're going to talk in the next few minutes. We're going to focus on how do we think as Microsoft we need to bridge today and tomorrow with Microsoft Artificial Intelligence. We make this remark because artificial intelligence is ready for you today. But how? How do you make it a reality? So here are the three main areas we're going to discuss. Mostly I'm going to be heavy on number one. I'll talk about number two, and then I'll leave you up with number three as the closing piece to really expand our imagination of what is possible, what could be possible when we talk about artificial intelligence. So number one, putting AI in action. What can we do to really drive and really start AI at all levels? How can we start today using artificial intelligence? Respond today with AI is not only what are the capabilities we have today, how do we do it, but also how do we start thinking? How do we set the building blocks to start thinking about potential future? And then number three, how, when you get into this whole world of AI and you understand its amplification effect, how do you start envisioning or reimagining all possibilities? So we'll talk about those three topics, and that's how we believe at Microsoft that is the perfect circle on how do you best get the biggest value of AI. And I'm going to make a very important call out today to educators and myself as a parent, myself as a Microsoft employee. We need to do the same every day with the younger generation, is to get them close to this amplifier. It's not a threat. It's not a bad technology if you know how to use it, like any other technology we have experienced as humans in the past. But let's start. How do we put AI into action? So from a Microsoft perspective, we need to focus on three main areas. The first one, we call it meaningful innovation or meaningful AI, just explores that we really need to focus on real problems to solve. This is not the time to just think about what if, or not only the what if, hypothetical scenarios. AI can help you solve problems, real problems today. How do we empower everyone around us? If we're in an educational institution, how do we empower educators? How do we empower students? How do we empower parents, communities, government to leverage the benefits of AI? We're going to talk more about that. And last but not least, inside the action is how do we actually use AI for the right reasons? And that's what we call responsible AI. It's a really powerful tool. And as I mentioned, it's an amplifier, but we need to be careful. What are we trying to amplify? So let's dive in. When we talk about meaningful innovation, that's one of my favorite topics, is really how do we make AI meaningful? And we think that there's three things you need to consider when we talk about AI in action. If we want to make it meaningful, we need to have a purpose and an impact. What is your North Star? What is it that you're trying to achieve? You cannot use your North Star of, let's say, using AI for the sake of using AI. That's not going to get you anywhere. That's what we normally call, and we see it in the enterprise. I jokingly call it the innovation theater. It's just doing innovation for the sake of doing innovation, but we're not solving anything. What is the purpose? And it could start small or it could start big. But what in the education industry you're trying to do? Are you trying to change the learning journey, the educational experience, the educator's experience? How can you amplify their capabilities? Really interesting things to contemplate, but it starts there with a clear purpose and a clear impact that you are looking at the technology. Second, how do you actually transform your organization, your institution, your industry into an AI-powered organization? We'll talk about elements where you can start using those technologies right away and you start getting people closer to the technology. So there's no fear, there's no concern, and we actually need to promote it. People know exactly what they can expect out of this technology. And last but not least, perfect complement to what I just described is the culture. When I say an AI culture, is an AI ready culture. Is the culture in your organization ready to embrace AI, to embrace this amplification? And there's a series of things that need to happen in order to have that readiness, but you have to reinforce. And as educators, you know, the concept of like a concept to get inside the head of a learner is how do you do it? How do you constantly remind them of the value until they realize the value themselves? So those three things are fundamental to find meaning in an AI work stream, in an AI engagement, in an AI strategy. It's not just AI for the sake of AI. Don't forget about that. Second one is how do we empower everyone? And this is just expands against in three main areas. How do we make AI accessible for everyone? How do we make it inclusive so everyone in your organization can use it? Not anyone, because you may target just one or two, but everyone can use it in a better way. How do you actually get people ready? Do you need to do skilling? I think I'm preaching the choir here when I mention what's the path that you need to get. And even sometimes it takes more responsibility if we're going to educate others around the topic of AI. What's the level of readiness that I need to have? But it's all correlated. So it starts with that availability or accessibility of AI to everyone, get people ready in all their different contexts, and then how do you bring it all together? Let me give you a couple of more details on how we can do that. At least at Microsoft, we treat it as you see it here on this image. In the middle, we are actually committed and focused on bringing AI to everyone by leveraging our everyday tools. By the way, you're already far ahead of that. If you have a smartphone, if you have a computer, you're already using AI. AI is already helping you with web searches, it's helping you with digital assistants, answering your questions. That's the type of power we're looking for, but it's important to leverage the solutions that are all around us. Simple things, but get people very used to the technology and how it can expand or amplify your capabilities. The second one is if you start thinking about your processes, and I'll give you some examples of that, but really interesting, how did your process change if you have AI? If you have this amplificator, how can you do things better? It's not just thinking of, oh, I'm one person and now I can do the job of 10 people. It's more around how do I do this with bigger quality, better? If we can enhance the learning journey for so much with this technology, then we have already won. If people can learn faster, better, and greater, That's a gift on its own. So how do we change our own processes to revolutionize that? And the last one is, how do you start building our own tools for AI? And that's when you might get in the most complex cases, but you see that this is a maturity that needs to happen. You don't need to jump right away into a full machine learning, data science type of project. Those will come, and will come with the maturity, and will come with all the different elements we talk about, meaningful AI and mindset around AI. They're extremely important, but you need to do this, what we call it, crawl, walk, run. Right? You need to start, you need to feel comfortable, and as you mature, your own processes, your own way of doing things with AI, everything else will start accelerating. This is the best I can do is give an example of how that happens. But you see, in this case, Becker College. See the quote, right? We've gone to an outcome where 20% of no man's land customer experience is now reduced down by 3.9%. So interesting, but it's already changing the way processes are working. But in this particular case, there was a lot of, he identified that there was a lot of jobs instability out of students that graduated with. So what does that mean, right? They were thinking, we framed this from a different problem, right? We framed the problem in a different way. We think, what do we need to do? And they started really thinking, how do we leverage machine learning? How do we leverage AI? And start profiling the student based on not only what they're learning, the curriculum, how they're learning, what is it their interest, what are the things that we can identify so we can build a profile that better identifies not only the skills, the attributes, the passions of students, and we can put them in front of employers where they can thrive. Could you imagine those? And this is real cases, cases that are already implemented in the market. And if you can increase the job security or the job, even the happiness, if we want to talk even subjectively, but you can increase the success of students by really paying attention, capturing the data, and letting AI be that amplifier for you. Isn't that great? Let's continue. So the third component that I mentioned, meaningful innovation, AI for everyone. Now we talk about responsibility, right? With great power comes great responsibility, and this technology surely needs a responsible framework to operate. There's many things that we can even do consciously and subconsciously, and we can actually make this tool amplify something good, something great, and something not so great. So from a Microsoft perspective, we focus on three main areas: providing the principles, the practices, and the tools. But let me give you an example of the first two, principles and practices. At Microsoft, we define it a series of principles, which is the framework not only in the way we do AI, but in the way that we recommend customers to run AI. Principles like fairness, accountability, transparency. Again, for us, humans are at the center of anything we do in AI. And the same happens to responsible AI. So then we decided, if you see on the right side, there's just some examples of some guidelines, but we created a framework where we ourselves, and we also help customers define what exactly they need to do and what considerations they need to have when they do responsible AI projects. It's extremely important to do that and to have that framework to make it happen. And considering transparency, inclusiveness is such a vital piece. And you see how the three elements that I discussed, meaningful innovation, empowering people, and responsible AI, really blend together. It's having those three that will get you started today using AI. So keep that in mind. So let's move to the next topic. What is it today? Why now? What's really the driver? Because we hear a lot of stories, and sometimes it feels like fantasy, right? But really, the moment for AI is because today is at the forefront of anything that and everything that we're doing. That amplifier effect is a reality, and it's happening already. We have the information, we have the tools and the technology. So basically, to chart this path forward, you need to think about three areas. Again, very similar to what we have discussed, but think about how do you use AI to respond to the realities of today? What is happening right now? What are the things that are disrupting your business, disrupting your your market. And if you think about it, it's already happened. In this pandemic world, we have been forced to try digital, 100% remote, different ways of educating. How does that change? In another presentation that I was doing in the space of education, we were thinking, how do we use AI to really not be more of an auditor, but really create the most comfortable space for a student to take a certification exam. So we can capture what we need to ensure that that person is taking the exam in the right way with the right value and ethical framework. But also, how do we know? How do we capture information that tells us, can we do this better? That's really the interesting part, right? Then how do you plan next? You start seeing this is a iterative process. As you move along, AI will basically learn more and do things, amplify the right things better. Then you think about, how can I take the next step? And the last one is, how do you reimagine what is possible? Problems that you know that they exist in your industry, put them on a specific area because you know they're too difficult. They know that it takes a lot of effort, whether you don't have the budget, whether you don't have the resources. Now, I encourage you to rethink about it, because this technology might bring you that amplification, whether it makes it cost effective, makes it resourceful. I'll encourage you to dust off those different challenges that you probably think they are already there and I cannot do anything about it. Now we can. I'll finish this section with this other example, which is really fascinating. It really goes inside the concept of solving different problems. In this case, this center decided to attack the dropout problem. So how do we reduce the dropout effect? Can we learn more about is there something AI can tell us around the learning journey that we're not seeing that will help a student not dropping, help a student focus, get better grades, get motivated, and really solving a really big problem that is the dropout percentage, right? Students that feel disencouraged, we don't know if the issues are at home, if the issues are at the institution, it's inside each individual, right? We don't know. Is there a possibility? I will not tell you that AI will solve for all of that, but at least it will give you possibilities to identify information, identify data that will help you, for sure. So then, if we close the two first topics, what lies in the future? I think I'll just leave you with one single thing in that third section. Is I said it once, and I'll say it again. Now, all the different things that you thought that were not possible to solve, from a small process inside your institution, from a big challenge that you're facing as an industry, for a big challenge that you see in education overall. It's time to bring those again and reevaluate them with this amplifier, this tool that will really take you and take your organization to the next level. Thank you so much for your time and appreciate you being here. This has been AI in Action, and feel free to find me, or connect with any other person in the event. Happy to be here, and I'll just encourage you, keep looking, keep digging, and think about this amplifier. It will definitely help you in the future. Thank you, and have a good day.